The anime begins by showing us a group of knights fighting against a giant stone golem. Right away, we are told that every member of each party has a different role. We also meet our protagonist by the name of Rudd, who is the team's tank. After defending one of his companions, she manages to counter the monster's attack. Rudd also explains that the tank role is not very popular among adventurers. The next day, we see the protagonist daydreaming about a girl who appears to be his sister. However, his thoughts are interrupted when a girl named Nin tells him to calm down, as he was acting completely out of his mind and drawing everyone's attention in the Adventurers Guild. The girl, seeing that the protagonist cannot stop thinking about his sister, hints that he should fall in love with someone. But Rudd responds that he is not interested in romance, as no one is truly more adorable than his sister. Right away, Rudd reveals that his sister is ill, and he wants to find the greatest treasure of the labyrinth to help her, as there are rumors that this treasure can grant any wish. Afterward, both of them begin talking about what happened the day before, as for some reason, despite Rudd managing to block every single attack from the creature, he ended up losing his shield. Rudd tells the girl it is not the first time this has happened to him, as for some reason he does not understand, every time he enters the labyrinth this occurs, so he apologizes to the girl, knowing that as a healer he is giving her a lot of work. Nin tells him it is fine, as in many situations the group has been able to survive thanks to him. This is because Rudd possesses an absorb shield and resistance at level 9999, which is the highest level an adventurer can ever reach. Just as she was continuing to praise his great abilities, they are interrupted when a hero who has conquered many labyrinths arrives at the place. We then meet the boy by the name of Kiglas. The boy is also accompanied by two girls named Lilia and Lily. He also tells them he has two more companions, and Nin mentions that this cannot be right, as with two more girls their party would be 7 people, and labyrinths only allow 6 people. So Kiglas coldly tells Rudd that he is now completely expelled from the party, calling him a useless attacker who does not allow them to progress. But Nin defends him, mentioning that thanks to him he blocked every enemy attack in each fight. Kiglas then also starts blaming Rudd, saying they almost died because of him, not to mention telling him the new girls are quite evasive, capable of defending and attacking at the same time compared to Rudd who only knows how to defend the group. So after emphasizing that he is fired, Rudd tells Nin that it is fine and starts to leave the place. But before he does, Kiglas tells him that because of him they could not earn anything, so he ends up taking his sword. After which Kiglas leaves, and the twin sisters at that moment tell Rudd they are sorry about what happened and that they do trust him. Nin also becomes very sad, as she did not want to abandon Rudd. This is because the girl seems a little attracted to Rudd, but he responds that they will continue seeing each other and he looks forward to her visit, as Rudd is thinking of returning to his hometown to live with his little sister. A short while later, Rudd is sitting at a fountain thinking about Kiglas's words, as he is truly feeling like a complete good-for-nothing. He wonders if it is because he has not learned any other skills. Just at that moment, Rudd overhears a group of boys talking about an escort mission. They mention they need to go to a place called Cura's, which is beyond where his hometown is, so without thinking twice they ask if he can join without needing to be paid. Also, Rudd gets a little nervous hearing them ask about his rank, as Rudd is actually only rank F from spending all his time in the labyrinth. However, one of the girls realizes the protagonist belonged to the hero's party, so without thinking twice they accept him into their group. At that moment, the person who requested the job arrives and is told about the new member, after which over the next several days they traveled, camping and dealing with various monsters along the way. That night, while the group was riding in the carriage, a fog began to surround the entire area. The person in charge asked Rudd if the right thing to do would be to stop and rest. However, Rudd tells him he has a bad feeling about all of this, so it would be better to keep going, as the worst thing that could happen is a surprise attack. After several seconds, Rudd suddenly asks him to stop, as they sense someone's presence. Upon getting off to investigate, a girl named Luna appears before him. She seems a little hurt and weak, and upon seeing Rudd she is afraid of him. Rudd also notices that the girl has a magic crystal in her chest. The group is interrupted when a gigantic serpent appears before them. This causes the group to panic, but Rudd, as a good tank, uses his taunt ability to draw the serpent's attention. It immediately attacks him with acid, but Rudd manages to use his shield to defend himself. Rudd tells them he will hold its attention and the group needs to finish it off. At this moment, Rudd receives a blow from the serpent and thinks he needs to do something, as he has a memory of his sister crying at that moment, so he knows he cannot let things stay this way. So after getting back up, he tells the group that since he has no weapon, they will need to finish the monster off. Right away, Rudd launches himself at the serpent and begins blocking each one of its attacks. This gives the boys the chance to throw themselves at it and deal some damage. The serpent, very furiously, charges its most powerful attack against Rudd, but he blocks it and the boys end up finishing off the creature, leaving everyone very surprised at having defeated a giant forest serpent. They thank Rudd as they defeated it thanks to him, but Rudd humbly tells them that everyone contributed equally. He also asks them to carve up the monster, as they will go check on Luna. After arriving and seeing she is fine, Rudd asks if she has a home or plans to go to any city. But the girl tells him she has nowhere to go, so Rudd invites her to come with him to live with his sister. Also, at this moment the person in charge arrives and offers her a dress as a gift, since she was wearing rags. While the girl goes to change, the two of them talk, mentioning that it appears Luna is a homunculus, which in simple terms is a slave, so they wonder if she escaped from somewhere. But Rudd mentions he will take her with him, as she has no collar identifying her as a slave, which makes the girl very happy, as she had been hidden listening to their entire conversation. The next day they finally arrive at the crossroads where Rudd must part ways with them. The group invites him to stay with them, but Rudd kindly declines since he needs to find the Labyrinth treasure. They mention this treasure can even create homunculi like Luna, but because they start speaking very poorly about homunculi, Rudd notices that Luna feels uncomfortable, so he changes the subject and mentions they need to get going. After saying goodbye to the group, Rudd and the girl walk through a beautiful meadow and formally introduce themselves to each other, leaving the girl very charmed, as she once again thanks Rudd for bringing her along. Later that night, after finishing dinner, several wolves appear around their small campsite. Suddenly, the girl picks up a knife and in just a few seconds manages to finish all of them off. Rudd at this moment reaches the conclusion that she appears to be an illegally created homunculus. He also adds that these are normally eliminated, but her gaze clearly reminds him of his sister. The girl, seeing Rudd very deep in thought, tells him she can control magic. However, she is very bad at hand-to-hand combat, and this is the reason she did not finish off the serpent from the other day herself. Right away the girl tells Rudd the abilities she has, and Rudd is clearly shocked to hear that Luna possesses a skill called appraisal, as she is currently the only person in the world who has this ability. It allows her to analyze the stats and abilities of people, so Rudd without thinking twice asks her to check all of his stats, and right after doing so she tells him he appears to have 4 abilities. In addition to taunt, Rudd has a skill called Healthy Body, which makes him immune to any type of status effect, not to mention health recovery and an extremely tough body to defeat. Rudd thinks he already knew about these 2, but he does not know the following ones. Right away, the girl tells him the 3rd skill is called Vital Conversion. This allows him to convert whatever he loses from his shield into a great deal of adaptable strength. So in simple terms, when Rudd had been losing his shield, his physical damage was increasing considerably. Finally, she tells him his last skill is called Sacrifice Shield. This allows him to receive the damage in place of his companions, making it an extremely powerful skill, as while he receives his team's damage, his physical damage at the same time increases exponentially. Rudd thanks the girl, as all this time he was worried about knowing the rest of his skills, without realizing what part of them he was already using. Afterward, over the next several hours, they continue walking until they finally arrive at the village of Avenir, which is Rudd's homeland. Shortly after, Rudd shows the village around, and we can notice it is quite an agricultural place. Also, suddenly a girl named Milna welcomes him with a strong hug, as does another named Phil. They tell Rudd she had been shopping and patrolling the place. Phil also mentions she has been looking after Rudd's sister, which clearly makes him very happy, as he knows that while he was away, the people of the village have been taking care of her. Rudd also explains the situation with Luna to them, and the girls are very pleased to welcome her. They formally introduce themselves to her, and we see Phil is somewhat shy when meeting new people. This makes Luna look very happy upon meeting her. A short while later, Rudd arrives at his house and a wonderful smell of all his favorite foods reaches him, all of which are on the table. Right away his adorable sister appears, who we come to know as Manisha. After introducing her to Luna, we see Rudd loves his sister deeply, as he thinks she is extremely cute and adorable, just like an angel. This causes the girl to tell them to sit down while she prepares another dish for Luna, but because Rudd knows she is ill, he asks to help her in the kitchen. Luna thinks Rudd's sister has a very interesting appearance, as she has hair that does not stop moving from one side to the other. Rudd explains that this is something unusual, as it moves according to how she feels. Manisha also tells Rudd she had prepared all this food because she had a feeling he was going to come, which left Rudd completely delighted, as he loves his sister's cooking. Shortly after, the three of them sit down for lunch, but the way Luna holds her spoon catches the attention of both of them. The girl begins to cry while apologizing, as she very rarely used a spoon. However, both of them with good hearts tell her it is fine, and Rudd's sister immediately says she will teach her how to use it. This makes her feel much better, as she feels the great hospitality both of them are giving her, and over the next several days they dedicated themselves to teaching the girl many things. Several days later, we see Luna prepared lunch and both siblings are very surprised, as for some strange reason the girl learned to cook exactly like Manisha, meaning she has a great learning ability. Right away Manisha mentions it is a very nice day, so she could show her around the village. Rudd agrees with this and the girl gets very nervous. At this moment, Manisha brings the girl an outfit and clearly tries to help her put it on, but she feels a little embarrassed, as she does not like people looking at the homunculus crystal she carries on her chest. Afterward, Rudd explains to us that in Avenir there are no churches or adventurers guild, as they simply have a blacksmith and an apothecary. Rudd arrives at the village blacksmith and father of Milna, named Raisel. The man, quite the jokester, asks when they will give him grandchildren with his dear daughter, as it seems he is quite fond of both of them. Rudd changes the subject and introduces Luna to him and also asks if he can make her a sword. Raisel accepts Rudd's request without any problem and mentions he should take Luna to the monster garden. They arrive at the place and Rudd explains to the girl that the plants there end up turning into monsters. Some children who arrive and bother Rudd ask if she is his girlfriend. But upon hearing that she is not, they tell him he will end up alone, as he is clearly obsessed with his sister. At that moment, an elderly woman named Gigi arrives, who is in charge of the apothecary. Seeing the old woman scold the children, Luna has memories of when she was a slave, as the girl truly has many traumas from her past. However, upon meeting the old woman she realizes she is a very kind person and mentions that all young people are like her children. Rudd at that moment thanks Gigi for having been providing medicine to his sister. However, Gigi apologizes to him for not being able to do more. The old woman also changes the subject and tells Luna she can count on her for anything she needs, and invites her to harvest some fruit at that moment. A few hours later, while Luna and Rudd are walking back home, he apologizes for everyone's behavior there, telling her that because she is very beautiful, everyone will treat her much better. This makes both of them nervous, as Luna did not expect to hear these words from Rudd. Rudd changes the subject and tells her to try the fruit they harvested. She is delighted and tells Rudd that everyone in the village has been very considerate toward her. She also tells him she would like to stay and live there forever. Right away the girl takes Rudd's hand and places it on her chest. She tells him that because of her magic crystal, she was designed to be able to fight, as Luna is not truly human. Luna confesses to Rudd that she was manufactured in the neighboring nation called Brunkles. She begins crying inconsolably for not having told Rudd this earlier, as she was very afraid he would kill her upon hearing she was a homunculus. She also tells him she cannot lie to him anymore, as he has been a very good person to her. Rudd very calmly tells her he already knew what she was, as when he saved her he saw the magic crystal in her chest. He also adds that the reason he decided to help her is because in the past he and his sister lived in a very poor area, so he recalls that Manisha had a very sad look in her eyes just like her. He also tells her she does not necessarily have to live as a homunculus for the rest of her life, as there is no rule that says she cannot live as an ordinary human. And since he is chasing after a treasure that he does not even know truly exists, they are in the same position. So finally, after thinking for a few seconds, the girl, very motivated, says she plans to live as a human alongside him. A short while later, both of them head back home and Luna decides to tell Manisha the truth. Manisha says she already knew, and they end up embracing upon knowing they will continue being friends. The next day we see Rudd along with others cleaning a large house. At that moment we see Manisha bring some drinks, and everyone goes completely wild, including Rudd himself. Phil also mentions that Rudd worries a great deal about his sister. Manisha agrees with her and tells her brother he should not worry so much, as she does not want to be a burden to him. Both of them are interrupted when one of the people present suggests they should train. Rudd agrees but mentions he wants to face Phil first. Right away, they go outside and the fight between both of them begins. Rudd thinks the girl has increased her strength considerably, as since the last time they faced each other she now has greater strength. Rudd starts to get distracted looking at his sister and Luna, so Phil manages to lower Rudd's HP a little, and he takes advantage of his new strength-boosting skill, and with a single blow wins the fight against the girl. Everyone is amazed by Rudd, as he finally managed to learn a new offensive skill. Rudd goes to congratulate the girl on the fight they had, and after hearing the protagonist's explanation of his skill, she is fascinated. Rudd thinks his entire life he dedicated himself only to defending, but now that he has this skill he plans to do both. Afterward, Rudd asks the rest who will be next to fight against him, but everyone backs down upon seeing the strength he has. This leaves both girls very fascinated, as they greatly admire Rudd. Later that night, Manisha wakes up due to a nightmare from her past, as she was abandoned by her parents, but Rudd from childhood took responsibility for her, so she wonders if Rudd would truly be happy if she were not around. The next day we see Rudd wakes up and is welcomed by his sister in the kitchen. Rudd tries to help her, but she refuses, clearly telling him she can do it herself. Luna then arrives, apologizing for having come late and not having helped cook. Luna also takes the opportunity to ask Rudd how they know how to prepare and do so many things. He mentions it is mainly due to the academic education they received, as they used to live in the slums and the nobles wanted to give them a dignified life. So thanks to all of them they joined the night school. While Rudd continues talking, Manisha has bad memories about herself, as everyone used to tell her that her brother would not amount to anything in the future because of her. The girl is interrupted by Rudd, who tells her he will go to the village very soon, and right away a memory of Manisha is revealed in which she explains that Rudd had good grades in school. However, one day she heard some girls mentioning that her brother would become an adventurer in order to help cure his sister. And from then on people began to think that because of her, Rudd would not be able to truly become anyone in life. Luna asks if she is doing well, as she had noticed she seemed a little sad. Manisha asks her what she would do if someone gave up their future to be with her, and Luna immediately realizes she is referring to Rudd, so she recommends she try talking to him directly about this, as Rudd's happiness does not necessarily lie in having success. The girl also adds that Rudd saved her knowing she was an illegal homunculus, so he must think very differently from everyone else. Rudd's sister, very distressed, mentions she does not know how to behave with her brother, as she knows she loves him very much, but she does not want to be so attached as to clearly set him back from his goals. So she feels very confused and does not really know what to do. Finally, Luna gives her some encouraging words and tells her she needs to be honest with him and tell him how she truly feels. At that instant, Rudd arrives immediately to talk with him. Right away, we see Manisha is very nervous, but Luna takes her hand so she clearly has some confidence. The girl, directly and very frightened, asks him why he saved her when her parents abandoned her. Rudd is very sincere and responds that she was actually the first to save him, as when he was a child he was very big and had a very serious face. So when he tried to play with other children, they called him an old man and ran away from the place in fear. Unlike her, who was the only one who clearly did not care about this and always sought him out to play with him. He even mentions that at first he was a little afraid of making decisions about living with her, but it was the best decision he has made so far, so he finally adds that he loves spending time with her and feels like the happiest man in the world. Right away, the girl begins to cry with happiness and apologizes to him for assuming how he felt, as she thought he was unhappy being with her. So at that moment, the girl throws herself at Rudd and hugs him. Both of them thank Luna for having helped bring them even closer together. And because Manisha looks so adorable, the girl ends up going to the kitchen. Just as both siblings are heading to help her, there is a knock at the door, and we see that Nin herself has arrived. She tells him she has days off and decided to come visit them. Rudd tells her he cannot believe Kiglas gave her days off. However, Nin tells him that after Rudd left the group, it ended up falling apart. This was due to a conflict the group had. Right away, we are shown a memory of when the hero and the others were fighting against a monster. Kiglas at that instant wonders why they were losing so much shield, asking himself what the difference was compared to when Rudd was around. Clearly all of this without knowing that it was Rudd's skill which was absorbing the damage they were receiving. After charging a powerful attack, Kiglas barely managed to finish off the monster, but the girls clearly recommended leaving, as the labyrinth they were in was above their levels. However, the boy's great ego would not let him leave, and just as more monsters began to appear. He tried to activate his skill again, but it was useless. And just when he tried to attack one of the monsters, it landed a blow on him, causing his shield to break and dealing him a great wound. Because Kiglas began taking a beating, Lilia took him along with the others and told him they needed to leave immediately. And after several days, we see the boy was badly injured and blaming the girl, as his reputation had collapsed. Nin at that moment interrupts him and tells him it is really his own fault, as he had been drinking too much and had gone too long without training even a little. Kiglas tried to make excuses, but Nin tells him his skill had only been working thanks to Rud. She also explains that his great power was due to Rud's enormous resistance. Finally, because the man refuses to accept that it was his mistake, all the girls at that instant decide to abandon the hero's party. Back in the present, Rud tells her it must have been very difficult. However, it was only recently that she realized these abilities. Nin also starts apologizing to him, as they did not know he was taking damage on their behalf. But because the protagonist does not seem to care much about the subject, he becomes cheerful and tells the group he will be working in the garden for a while. And because Rud is surprised to hear she will be staying, she acts like a toxic girl asking if he wants her to leave. But Rud responds that it is a little difficult to find an inn for people who come from outside the village. So after a brief conversation, Manisha says they could then stay with them at their house. Rud gets very nervous and whispers to his sister that Nin is the daughter of a duke and an aristocrat, as she is literally a saint, and they do not want to have problems with the church for not giving the saint the very best. Rud concludes that the best thing is to give her his room, so they immediately head there and Nin is very fascinated by how comfortable it is. And because Rud tells her he will sleep elsewhere, the girl puts herself in a very compromising position and tells him she would not mind sleeping with him. Rud tells her to stop playing and acting this way, but she gets very nervous and tells him she was not actually playing around, as she truly is in love with him. At that instant, both of them are interrupted when Phil arrives and tells them a monster she had never seen before attacked the garden. Without thinking twice, they head to the place, and upon arriving at the creature, they see it has a magical aura, and Nin ends up purging it, revealing the monster's true appearance. At this instant, a knight decides to attack, but the monster blocks the attack. Just as the giant wolf was about to attack them, Rud uses his taunt ability to draw its attention, so he starts defending using his shield. Also, while Rud receives damage from his allies, we see the girls heal Rud. At that instant, Rud tells them not to be afraid, as his skill allows him to receive the damage they take. So they begin attacking and dealing a great deal of damage, making the monster start running toward the village, after which Luna stops it with a wall she creates. Rud thinks it is time to release all the accumulated damage exchanged from taking the attacks, so using his shield he hits the monster with a powerful attack, leaving everyone very happy as there were no casualties. The next day, while Rud reads the newspaper, he thinks it is strange that the monster they defeated had 2 magic gems. Suddenly his sister arrives, and after sitting on his lap she sweetly asks him to read the newspaper to her, as the girl is quite spoiled. Afterward they read that many labyrinths have appeared, and Rud fears one will activate near the village. He also notices a piece of news that Kiglas has entered a labyrinth again. This causes Manisha to mention that Nin detests the man, as he always used to mock Rud. Rud says a few words about Nin, knowing that she is in love with him, to which he responds he is not ready for romance, as he has other things to do like focusing on obtaining the labyrinth treasure. However, despite hearing these words, his sister tells him she knows he would look great together with Nin. A few hours later, Rud and his group are gathered before Phil to deal with a chameleon Kong. She tells them it is strange that one appeared near Avenir, so they will need to investigate and deal with this monster. She also tells them that if they find the labyrinth entrance they must inform her immediately. Right away Nin asks Rud about his new sword and shield, which is completely polished. He tells her it was Milna's father along with her who made the sword. They also added a mana stone, so depending on the type of monster, Rud can imbue a little magic to counter it. One of the people present starts mocking Rud, as he is clearly rank C and makes fun of Rud's rank F. Luna gets upset seeing Rud not defend himself from the boy, but he responds that he prefers being underestimated over being overestimated. Nin at that moment tells Rud his rank is simply outdated, as he is at the level to be a knight of a saint like her. The boys are amazed, and Rud tells them he prefers to stay rank F so the Adventurers Guild does not keep calling on him. At that moment, they are interrupted when a chameleon Kong invisibly arrives. Right away it launches itself at the knights, but they manage to block it in time, so Rudd, without thinking twice, uses taunt on it and clearly begins blocking its attacks. Everyone right away starts attacking, but Rudd finds it strange that it does not redirect its attacks toward him, so he immediately thinks it could be the tank of a group. And indeed he is right, as just at that moment other Kongs come out to attack the group. Right away they are surrounded by all of them, and Rudd tells Phil he will get them out of this. So he uses his taunt among the three Kongs, and this buys his group time to deal with the rest. Finally, after defeating two of them, Rudd imbues fire magic into his sword, and after that Phil finishes one off. Right away the group directs their gaze at the last one, and after a series of combined spells, Rudd finishes the monster off with a sword strike. The boy who had mocked him ends up apologizing to Rudd. However, at that moment the monsters start disappearing along with the labyrinths. Nin at that moment tells him she has found the labyrinth entrance that has been created in the area. Later that night, everyone in the village is celebrating the appearance of the labyrinth, as it could bring them prosperity and many people from other places. Just at that moment, a boy asks Manisha if she wants to drink with him. However, Rudd, as an overprotective brother with a threatening look, takes him away from the place. Nin at that moment arrives with Luna, and the girl tells Rudd he does not seem very happy. Nin explains that the appearance of labyrinths is in many cases clearly not a good thing, as if they do not defeat all the monsters in the area, these can end up coming out just like the Kongs did, so they could come out and attack nearby villages. At the same time, she explains that the arrival of adventurers can also be a real problem, as they could chase after the pretty girls like them and Luna, and then asks how they organize themselves. Rudd at this moment arrives and mentions they do it through clans, as this way adventurers are organized by a leader. Several days later, two men in the village are about to fight, but at this moment Rudd arrives, causing panic among them, and they run away at full speed. Nin congratulates him for the good job patrolling, and while Kaminata mentions that many adventurers have arrived in the village over the course of the week. At that moment, they are interrupted when someone mentions a fight is about to break out. Afterward, we see two Ranka adventurers are in conflict over which members of their clan will enter the labyrinth. However, at that moment, Rudd arrives to calm them down and tells them that if they cause problems, they will need to leave the village. This causes another man to try to attack him, but he is stopped very easily. Nin, very angry, tells them that unlike Rudd, she will not hold back and right away begins creating several spells. So upon hearing all of this, the men end up apologizing for the commotion they caused, and because they were rejected when they invited Rudd to join their clans, they clearly end up leaving. Rudd explains to us that in the past his greatest dream was to join a clan, but his thoughts are interrupted when a man arrives and tells him people are looking for him. In a change of scene, we see Rudd arrives with a man named Build. He tells him that someone whose name is not revealed to us has gotten in contact with him, as he gave him two options. The first is that Rudd forms a clan and becomes its leader, as many adventurers have been amazed by all of Rudd's achievements. Rudd at first refuses, since he really wants to find the cure for his sister first, as that way he could be at peace and live a happy life with her. On the other hand, as a second option, he tells him he will need to destroy the labyrinth, but this would only cause the development of the village to stop. This is because many labyrinths have appeared throughout the kingdom and they cannot keep control of everything. So this second option is based on destroying in order to stop the monsters from coming out and causing problems, which puts Rudd in a very difficult position at that instant. A short while later, while Rudd walks, he recalls that Build told him he would give him time to make a decision. Also, while he stops to look at a conflict, Luna arrives at full speed to tell him something is happening with Manisha. Right away, Rudd arrives home and sees the girl is very ill. At that moment, he realizes that if he truly becomes the leader of a clan, he will not be able to go out searching in other labyrinths for a long time, meaning he cannot search through all of them for the sacred treasure to save his sister. Afterward, Rudd makes a decision and tells the girls to help destroy the labyrinth, as between his sister and the village, he clearly prefers to stay for Manisha. Luna at that moment tells him it is not necessary for him to stay in the clan in case he creates one, as he could name someone as leader to continue watching over and protecting the village, so she volunteers, and this means protecting what he clearly loves. Nin also supports her friend's words and tells him she likewise was thinking of stopping being a saint, so she would join his clan to help Rudd. This makes Rudd feel happy, as many people are now supporting him. The next day, while Rudd walks with the girls, he recalls that thanks to them he decided to stay to protect his sister and the village, so he plans to conquer the labyrinth and create a clan right away to be able to save his sister. Also, Rudd, a little thoughtful, mentions he did not expect former members of his group to be exploring the labyrinth. After a long walk, we see Rudd arrives with a group, and we see the twins themselves are at the place, as is another boy named Chuger, who is a church knight. After entering a small tent, we see that inside is Kiglas, who becomes furious with the boy and tells him it takes a lot of nerve to come and talk to Rudd again. Rudd very calmly tells him it is fine, as he has moved past everything from before. Kiglas informs Rudd that just the day before he had visited the labyrinth and they came across a guardian who has its own consciousness, as this is the first time this has truly happened. And the boy, quite shamelessly, tells Rudd he clearly wants him to explore the labyrinth. So in simple terms, because he is injured, he asks him to be his replacement. The man makes mention of the object Rudd is looking for, and understanding all of this, he ends up apologizing to Rudd for everything he did to him, so Rudd with a good heart ends up accepting, but tells him he will be taking Lilia and the others along. A short while later they arrive at the labyrinth, and clearly upon entering they prostrate themselves over a summoning circle, as this will teleport them to the first floor. They arrive at another place that even appears to have a sun and everything, so Nin and Rudd begin explaining to Luna how everything works inside a true labyrinth. Rudd explains to Luna that Lily has a skill that allows her to teleport to another summoning circle, so they could return at any time they wish. At that moment, the girl also explains to Luna that she knows how to use an emergency spell to escape. After showing it to her, we see Luna tries to replicate it and it works perfectly, leaving Nin very excited. The group is interrupted when 3 chameleon Kongs arrive to attack them, and Rudd right away uses his taunt skill, so the rest without thinking twice starts finishing off each one of them. All of this while a mysterious man is spying on them. Shortly after the group arrives at another place and they are welcomed by monsters very similar to a T-Rex. But because they are very resistant and they need to save their strength to fight the Guardian, Nin hurriedly tells them she found the portal to leave. So over many labyrinth floors they dodged many monsters while being watched by the mysterious man. And several hours later, just before crossing to the 10th floor, Rudd thanks everyone for their help. But they mention they know how important it is to him to take care of his sister, so they do all of this to be able to help him. They finally manage to cross and come across a place full of grass. Just at that moment the mysterious man appears and introduces himself to them as Marius. He welcomes the group to his labyrinth, as he is the guardian with its own consciousness that Kiglas had mentioned. The man very confidently tells them it is his domain and he will show them what he is made of. Without thinking twice, he launches himself at Rudd, and Rudd thinks he is extremely strong, so Marius takes his katana and begins emanating a completely dark aura. However, he is attacked by Rudd's entire group and Marius manages to block each one of the attacks. The man, seeing the group has very good coordination, tells them it is better they use their skills to leave, as he will use his true strength and transform into a monster. Right away he transforms into a kind of giant skeleton, so Rudd begins taking turns with another member using taunt. The girls also take advantage and land several hits on the monster. Rudd gets a little nervous, as he knows it could kill them. However, he remembers they cannot return empty-handed to his sister. Right away, we are shown a memory of the group when they were planning a strategy, as they plan to use Rudd's technique of accumulating as much damage as possible and converting it into a powerful final blow. So back in the present, we see Lilia manages to land a powerful thrust. Nin tells them they need to be patient, as all of this is about maintaining resistance. Luna at that moment feels motivated and begins healing Rudd. Upon seeing that more than 30,000 shield points have been taken from him, he thinks it could be a very good opportunity to finish off the monster. And Luna, after creating a distraction, Rudd manages to land a powerful blow. However, they are surprised to find that the monster managed to resist this attack. So Rudd thinks that if they can charge one more attack, they could truly finish it off. At that instant, Marius charges an ability that increases his power and begins hitting several of the group members. Rudd, seeing his companions are being defeated, thinks he will not put their lives above his own interests. So he asks them to retreat, but they refuse as they plan to support him until the very end. At this moment, Rudd feels motivated to finish off the monster. And we see that in a very peculiar way the twins end up fusing, as through a skill in which they kiss each other, they transform into a combination of both of them called Liliali. They begin attacking the monster along with the rest of their companions. Just as Rudd is about to receive the final blow that will break his shield, he thinks this is his greatest opportunity, So he decides to discharge all the accumulated damage in a powerful blow that instantly eliminates the Guardian. Or at least that is what they thought, as Marius appears before them again detransformed, saying it was fun. However, he also mentions he cannot move much, so he ends up accepting his defeat. Rudd tells him he did not come to kill anyone, as he only wants to talk about the treasure that grants wishes. Marius at that moment hands him a magic rune and tells him this object is capable of performing miracles. So he only needs to imbue a little of his magic and make the wish, but warns him that, when he uses it, he needs to be very careful as it will end up breaking. Rudd thanks him at that moment and, after shaking his hand, tells him he wants him to continue being the guardian of the labyrinth. Marius accepts and tells him he is eager to fight against strong adventurers like them. Several hours later, Rudd arrives with his sister, and after showing her the magic rune, she tells him she cannot accept it, as it is better he makes a wish for himself. Rudd responds that whether he keeps it or she does, the result will be the same, so the girl ends up accepting. And after using a little magic, we see that Manisha has suddenly been cured, making Rudd embrace her and begin to cry with happiness. After a long time has passed, Rudd tells us that the city has prospered greatly. He also runs into the men who had almost gotten into a fight some time ago and had invited him to a clan. They tell him that now as the leader of a clan things must be very complicated for him, so Rudd tells them yes, and mentions he has a proposal for them. In a change of scene, Rudd talks with Nin, and she mentions they need to have many more allies, so Rudd recalls that Lilia had recommended allying with other clans, as this way he ends up offering something that benefits the allies and they can help each other mutually. So back in the present, we see Nin is left thinking about what they could offer so people ally with them. However, due to Rudd's great leadership ability, the girls get a little sad, as he tells them that if his clan fills up with people, they will not be able to spend much time alone, which causes Rudd to blush completely. The girl even tells him they could use him to attract people's attention, but Rudd, as a true alpha male, tells her he will not allow her to do things like that. Both of them are interrupted when Marius arrives at that moment. He tells Rudd he wants him to take charge of the labyrinth, as he cannot tolerate the fights between adventurers, so Rudd refuses and Marius asks to join Rudd's clan so he can maintain order in the labyrinth among everyone. Rudd ends up accepting, so Marius tells him to come to the place so he can explain how to look after it. Upon arriving at the place, we see Marius creates a portal that takes them to the place where he administers the labyrinth. This is the same place where he had faced Rudd. He also begins explaining that they can summon as many monsters as they want. And because Rudd wants to see how this works, Marius ends up summoning a goblin near some adventurers, causing Rudd to scold him. The man also explains which monsters he can summon and mentions that some are difficult to call, as the dungeon system is based on points, so a being like a Fenrir, which costs 1,000,000 points, is almost impossible to summon. So he finally adds that grimoires are one of the ways to summon monsters at random. At that moment, Rudd decides to try his luck, and we see a slime suddenly comes out and in a very adorable way ends up becoming attached to Rudd. Also, now that he summoned a slime, he can also start summoning them inside the labyrinth. Rudd at this moment thinks that if he continues randomly summoning new monsters, they could even summon rank S monsters, which would attract many adventurers. While Rudd was deep in thought, we see the slime suddenly ends up hitting Rudd. Marius tells him they just earned 1,000 points, as this slime is quite rare. Right away, the little friend apologizes for hitting him, and Rudd tells him that blow just gave him an idea. So he tells Marius that he will accept taking charge of the labyrinth, but he will do it in a very different way. Shortly after, Rudd arrives with the girls, and they are very fascinated to see how cute and adorable the slime is. Rudd tells them he will now be their pet, and Luna thinks they need to give it a name, so after talking for a little while, Rudd ends up naming it Lime. This name seems to please the slime, so likewise the girls are happy learning its new name. In a change of scene, we see the Ranka Knights who had spoken with Rudd, named Bild and Gary, talk to each of the leaders of their respective clans, as they tell them Rudd proposed creating an alliance with them. They start to become interested in him, so they ask them to invite him. Several days later, we see Rudd's group arrives at a city called Kald. Rudd shows them some letters they have made to deliver to both clans. Afterward, we are shown a memory from days earlier, when Rudd explains that these letters are invitations to a ball for the Kald clans, which are the Dark Dragon and the White Tiger. At that moment, Rudd gives them the bad news that he was temporarily rejected by the Garibu clans. As in exchange for accepting Rudd's request, they want him to hand over Nin. clearly because she is a very famous saint in the kingdom. But because the girl tells him she does not plan to leave Rudd's clan, he respects her decision and responds that if that is the case he will reject their offer. So he knows he will have the opportunity at the ball to speak directly with the guild leaders. Marius at that instant interrupts them and tells Rudd that his magic lake detected the presence of a labyrinth in Kaled, which has just like the Guardian its own consciousness. This causes Rudd to get completely excited, as apparently his sister did not recover 100%. So he thinks that clearly with a second magic stone he could restore her health completely and eliminate her illness from the root forever. Nin mentions that not even the great clans in this place have reached the maximum floor. However, Rudd tells her it is nothing for them, as they are a very powerful team. Back in the present we see that on the day of the ball, Rudd is delighted to see how beautiful Nin looks. We also see the rest of the girls arrive, and the twins appear very close to each other, so one could say the girls are quite turbulent. Right away a large crowd arrives at the place and they begin whispering that Nin has come to join their clan. This bothers Rudd a little, but the girl tells him not to let people underestimate him. Right away the group goes to dinner, and while eating, suddenly the show begins at that moment. Two boys present themselves as the sub-leaders of each of the clans. Rudd seems very unhappy, as he was expecting to see the leaders in person. They call Nin forward, but Rudd takes her and tells them he is going to complain to them, as the girl is clearly not part of either of these two clans. After hearing some nonsense from the man, Rudd introduces himself as the leader of the Avenir clan. This causes the man to start mocking him, as he knows him and knows he was a member of the former hero's party. They also start telling him he is known for being useless. The man also confesses before everyone that the hero's group on several occasions asked for his help, and it was he who was responsible for suggesting to the hero to remove him from the group. This causes the girls to be surprised, and Rudd starts filling with great anger, as he says tanks are not necessary to get through any labyrinth. So finally both sub-leaders argue over who will get Nin, but Rudd calms them down immediately and tells them he does not plan to hand over Nin, as he has come to form an alliance with both clans. And after taking the microphone, he tells everyone that he has come to conquer the Kaled Labyrinth and even mentions that their group is much more powerful than both clans, so he plans to reach beyond floor 51. Rudd is then greeted when the leader of the Dragon Fang arrives, named Ghost. He seems very interested in Rudd's energy, so after shaking his hand, Rudd feels the imposing strength of this man. So Ghost takes the microphone and tells everyone that if Rudd plans to get past floor 51, he will clearly think about the alliance. On the other side, the leader of the White Tiger clan appears, named Loodle. She tells him she also plans to analyze Rudd's proposal, as it comes from someone very confident about conquering the labyrinth. So finally Ghost tells Rudd he hopes he is not just all talk. Later that night Marius congratulates Rudd on the great speech he gave. He tells him Rudd knows he will fully conquer the entire labyrinth. And after saying these words, Marius goes to shower, and just at that moment the girls appear to clearly talk with Rudd. They likewise congratulate him, and we see Nin gets a little embarrassed while thanking him for having defended her. Right away the girl leaves, and Rudd thinks it will be a little difficult to conquer the labyrinth, as clearly not even the two largest clans in the place have been able to do this. Right away we see Lily silently drags Rudd into a dark room. He gets very nervous, but the girl only asks for his help as she cannot tie her dress. After helping her, the girl thanks him and tells him his speech at the ball completely impressed her. The girl then confesses that she always feels safe whenever she is near Lilia. However, she is embarrassed to have to accept that she needs to learn to fend for herself. And since they were young, they have been very close, and Lily has practically been helping her with everything. Rudd asks if it is because she cannot use magic, but the girl tells him she can, but it is much better to use the sword, so even when they fuse she is the one in control. After hearing all of this, Rudd realizes it is hard for the girl to see how close she is to her sister, while wanting to tell her she wants to be independent. Rudd at that moment tells her she can count on him and can bother him as much as she wants. So the girl very happily starts jumping for joy, but ends up tripping over Rudd. She falls on top of him on his bed, and just then her sister appears, finding them in quite a compromising position. This causes her sister to get furious, and she suddenly tells her she wants him to go up to the rooftop with her. While at the place, Rudd asks her not to do anything to him, but she very calmly tells him she just did her dramatic act to bring him there. The girl tells him the story he knew about their parents having abandoned both of them was a lie, as she actually confesses their parents used to mistreat them, and since then both of them escaped. She also tells him she had never seen Lily with a man since then, and she has been in charge of looking after her all this time. Even Rudd tells her in many situations he loses his head when it comes to his sister. The next day we see Rudd's group arrives at the Labyrinth entrance and runs into the sisters. Lily tells him she just returned from floor 49, as she managed to get in along with other adventurers taking advantage of the opportunity, so now using her dungeon walk skill, they can teleport directly to this floor. Also, Lilia mentions she has been studying the members of both guilds, and they have both magic attackers and healers, clearly because they are not used to having tanks in their parties. Finally, she tells them that the creatures in the labyrinth inflict many status effects, but due to Rudd's skill, these will have no effect. Afterward, the group enters, and after saying some final words, they teleport to floor 49. After walking for a while, Rudd senses the presence of monsters in the surroundings. Marius explains it is because he is now the administrator of the Avenir Labyrinth. At that moment, the group is interrupted by some monsters that appear before them. Right away, Rudd uses taunt and begins blocking their attacks. Also, everyone starts landing their skills and spells on the monsters. And because they defeated several of them and were not letting anyone leave, Rudd used a magic stone that flashed brightly to escape from them. The group is happy to have escaped, and Nin tells Rudd she now feels they can control Rudd's skill themselves. That is, if they want to take the impact and not pass it to Rudd, they can do so. Marius also congratulates him on his taunt skill, as this skill does not always work for other tanks, so he mentions he should learn the self-healing skill and he would be perfect. This surprises Rudd, who did not know this skill existed. Marius tells him very few humans know about it, as he is not one of them. Also, after thinking about it a little, he ends up confessing to them that he is actually a demonoid. This leaves everyone at the place speechless. Afterward, Marius explains that there is a timeline where humans and semi-humans exist, and just before them existed the demonoids, who swore loyalty to a demon instead of the god of humans they worshipped. And the reason he administered a labyrinth was for this purpose, as he confesses to them at that moment that the labyrinths were created by this demon in order to attack and eliminate humans. This causes Nin to get nervous, telling him she thought her god had created them to enrich their lives, leaving everyone very confused upon learning the truth. He also adds that even though he is a demonoid, he hates them, so he asks them to be careful with the guardian of this labyrinth, as it is possibly also a demonoid. Rudd tells him it is fine, as they have a very strong team as well as himself, who has now become his friend. This causes everyone else to agree, and Marius feels comfortable seeing they are not afraid of him after learning the truth. After a long conversation, they change the subject and begin planning how to defeat the monsters to reach floor 50. Finally, after defeating several monsters, they reach the next floor, where they come across a skeletal dragon. Rudd, without thinking twice, uses taunt on the monster to draw its attention. He also recalls the entire strategy one of the twins had explained to him. Right away, we see Rudd manages to block one of the monster's attacks. Suddenly, they receive an aerial attack that hits the group. After the guard drops a little, Rudd receives a hit and Luna gets a little worried. However, all of this works in Rudd's favor to use his skill. The monster surprisingly charges a blow and manages to hit two of them, applying a kind of status effect on both. While the girls heal him, Rudd tries to kill it with a fire spell and his taunt, but it suddenly seems to no longer take effect on him, so right away, the monster attacks him with a kind of liquid that makes his shield weigh a lot. But immediately Nin helps him clean it off, and at the same time activates a self-healing skill in the area, which is the unique skill of saints. After a long hour of combat, we see everyone is still completely the same, so Rudd runs out of patience and decides to launch himself to attack the monster. Marius and Lilia also join to make several cuts. Finally, a series of combined attacks from the group, and Rudd uses his counterattack skill to finish off the creature with a single blow, so everyone becomes happy at having cleared floor 50. They also mention they are going to rest for the rest of the day. Later that night, Rudd tells Lilia they should sell the obtained items gradually, as they could attract people's attention very quickly. So after a brief conversation, both twins leave to go rest. A short while later, Rudd and the girl head to dinner, and right then Luna tries alcohol for the first time. This causes the girl to be completely disappointed by its taste, as she finds it extremely bitter. Suddenly, Nin changes the subject and acts like a completely jealous girlfriend, mentioning that Lily and Lilia have been very close to him. The protagonist gets nervous, but Luna, who got drunk from a single sip, tells him she indeed has seen them very close together, So after hearing that they are only companions, Nin calms down and suddenly becomes affectionate with Rud, telling him they too could be much more than companions. And this is where all of us would clearly wish we were Rud. Rud acts like a complete coward and tells her he does not think about these things, as right now he is focused on conquering the labyrinth to completely cure his sister, so he has no time to be in a relationship with someone. Nin only tells him he will then need to put his life in order. Luna also asks him if he is dating anyone, but upon hearing that he is not, she also hints to him and tells him that every time she is with him her heart races. A short while later, Rud arrives at his room and is surprised to find Lilia sleeping in his bed. A little nervous, he wakes her up and the girl tells him she came to ask him something, but fell asleep from tiredness. The girl tells him she is a little thoughtful about her sister, as she has been changing a lot, noticing that even her strength has increased, not to mention she is now much more extroverted. So she asks Rud if he fears change. Rud calmly tells her it is normal to be afraid of making changes in life, but in many cases he thinks it is better not to change things. Although he does not like change much, he is glad that everything has changed in Avenir, as now there is much prosperity. The girl tells him in many situations she feels she is much weaker than her sister, so she is starting to feel bad because she is growing distant from her. Rud at this moment thinks this could be a real problem, as Lily had just told him she wanted to become independent from her sister. So with a play on words, Rud makes her understand that despite being able to be apart, they will never truly be separated. The girl, after hearing these words, starts to feel much better. The next day we see the group is in the labyrinth again. Just before teleporting, they start thinking of a plan to get past floor 51, and after a long planning session, they right away teleport. Upon arriving at the place, they find a location completely filled with dense fog. Luna tries to clear the fog with wind magic, but it is completely useless. Marius tells her it is possibly because the fog is made with mana just like the monsters. Rud at this moment starts concentrating to try to detect the monsters, and he locates them. However, at this instant they are attacked by mud monsters, and Rud right away concentrates to look for a way out, so after telling them where it is he uses taunt to distract them. At that moment some creatures known as the Ajin appear before him. These are acoustic monsters that surround Rud at that moment, and just as he manages to block a surprise attack, Marius arrives to help him. Afterward, for a while, everyone learns to detect enemies through mana. So after defeating monsters over time, they arrive at the next summoning portal. They decide to eat before crossing it so they can go with full energy. Also, Rud is very fascinated by the enormous amount of materials they manage to collect. A couple of hours later, the group finally crosses the portal and arrives at a place that appears to be a boss room. At this instant, a summoning circle starts to form before them and a skeletal boss begins to appear. It has some colored orbs, and Rud, without knowing anything, decides to attack. After using taunt, we see he tries to hit the monster, but it uses its yellow orb to create a shield. Also, using the red orb, it attacks Rud, and the red one serves as support to increase its stats. Rud gets very nervous as he knows the shield will cause him problems, so he uses taunt again and the group attacks the monster from behind. However, it blocks them, and he realizes the boss can only use one shield at a time. Rud takes advantage to pressure it, but the monster creates a horde with a very bright flash. Suddenly we see Lilia starts behaving very strangely and launches herself to attack Marius. She mentions he must not hurt her sister, so she has a brief memory of when their father mistreated both of them. Back in the present, Rud asks Nin to heal the girl, as it appears the skill the boss used put a status effect on her. Also at that instant, Rud receives an attack from the boss, but he counters using his skill and lands a blow against it. Rud tells Marius to switch positions, as he clearly wants to help Lilia, so right away he uses taunt on her and manages to pin her to the ground. Rud realizes she is having visions of her trauma, so after saying a few words to her, the girl regains consciousness. Rud encourages her, saying she now has many friends who look after her. On the other side, Rud tells Marius it is now time to destroy the monster's yellow orb. Rud, without thinking twice, launches himself at the monster and manages to find a weak point, realizing it cannot block a magic attack if it is fighting hand-to-hand. So they try it, and we see a fire spell manages to take effect, as it broke through the barrier at that moment. On the other side, after the rest of the group has been healed, everyone performs a combined attack hitting in different directions. Rud takes advantage to get close and land a blow. However, they did not account for the monster duplicating itself at that instant, so after discovering which is the real one, they continue attacking with everything they have. Finally, Rudd uses all his strength to break the monster's shield, and it is finished off by his companions, obtaining its magic crystal this way. Nin thinks they need to rest, and Lily mentions she will look for the summoning circle. However, she cannot detect anything, so they conclude that location is the last floor. Marius tells them he does not know what is happening, as possibly that monster was the best the Guardian had, so possibly the Labyrinth Guardian is afraid of them. This causes Rudd to realize they have no way to continue, so he tells his team it is best to return home. However, at that instant we see that just behind Rudd a girl appears who bites Rudd's neck. She also has an appearance similar to a demon, and Rudd's group gets nervous, as just then 4 skeletons start being summoned around them. Rudd does not know what to do, as they cannot defeat all of them. However, suddenly the girl with a single move finishes all of them off, and Marius gets nervous and mentions he did not expect to run into one of the demon kings. At that instant, Rudd realizes the girl is the guardian of the place, so she with a very threatening look intimidates everyone. The group at that moment starts feeling a strong pressure, and the demon is fascinated to learn that status effects had no effect on Rudd. The girl, who introduces herself as Ammon, asks why they are not afraid in her presence. Rudd tells her it is because her appearance is very cute and adorable, unlike Marius, who tells Rudd to be careful, as she is a being of 300 years. Clearly these words make the girl angry, but the protagonist calms her down immediately. Ammon then reveals that Marius is apparently also a demon king, but as we already knew, he also hates other kings. Marius warns the girl that Ammon has all of them to fight with, so the girl responds that none of them would truly be capable of reaching her power. Ammon at that instant begins emanating a very dark aura, and Rudd manages to jump in time to block one of her attacks. Marius and Lilia also try to attack, but it is completely useless. After exchanging several blows and spells with the girl, Rudd manages to create a distraction with a bright magic stone, which allows Marius to make a tremendous cut across her chest. This causes a tornado to suddenly start forming in the area due to the massive amount of mana she is expelling from the cut. So Ammon begins to transform, and after a few seconds she ends up turning into a gigantic wolf. Rudd draws her attention and begins attacking without stopping. Despite his companions attacking Ammon in different ways, the monster's tough skin does not allow them to deal any damage. Ammon continues attacking Rudd, and right then receives a tremendous cut from Marius. This enrages the wolf, who lets out a very loud howl. Right away, for a while, Rudd continued using taunt while the rest of his companions dealt a great deal of damage. Ammon, seeing she is taking massive damage, activates a wind magic barrier that prevents anyone from getting close to her. Rudd at this instant thinks it is possibly activated by the gem on her head, so Rudd thinks they need to destroy it to be able to finish off Ammon. The group right away starts attacking again to create a distraction, as Nin is conjuring a spell to undo the barrier. After several seconds without giving up, she finally manages it and deactivates her wind magic. This causes the group to take advantage and deal a great deal of damage. And just when Rudd realizes his shield has received 30,000 points of damage, he tries to use his counterattack skill. However, Ammon uses wind magic to float and counters with a tornado that starts surrounding Rudd. Rudd looks very confused as his shield is about to break, which would clearly mean his death. After breaking free from the attack, we see Marius and Lilia are lying on the ground, so Rudd asks the girls to look after them as he is the only one who can hold Ammon. Right away he heads toward the wolf, and Rudd manages to block one of her attacks, but because he has no defenses left, he receives massive damage. Just as Ammon was about to charge a wind spell, she stops immediately as she is becoming completely weak. Lily at that moment interrupts them and tells them she plans to do the fusion to take advantage of this weakness. So Rudd starts distracting Ammon again, and after fusing with her sister, we see Lily tries to hit the monster. But because her sister was unconscious at that moment, Lily is the one controlling the fusion body, and she is not very used to it, but Rudd tells her he will buy time until she can fight well. Rudd starts feeling powerless, as he knows at any moment they could fall unconscious and not be able to defend his friends, so he recalls Marius using mana as if it were a shield. Just at this moment, Ammon attacks him and is blocked by the mana shield Rudd created. Since it is not enough, he increases the mana even more and starts feeling much lighter. Even Rudd manages to land a blow on Ammon right when the demon was distracted by Rudd and forgot about Lily, who charged a powerful multi-element blade cut with her sword, causing Ammon to immediately detransform. At that precise moment, both girls fall to the ground, and Rudd manages to hold his friends in time, So after letting them rest, he goes to Ammon, who tells Rudd she can no longer fight and says she underestimated him and did not think they would beat her. Rudd kindly tells her he only wants the magic rune that grants miracles, so the girl without any problem ends up giving it to him. But Rudd tells her he has absolutely no plans to do any such thing. He even invites her to join him to deal with another demon king in case they want to destroy the world. The girl, not being very attached to the other kings, tells him she accepts being his ally without any problem. Finally, because the girl cannot move, she ends up asking Rudd to carry her like a baby. Several days later, we see a ball has been held in the same place, and Rudd along with Nin notified everyone that they managed to conquer the entire labyrinth. So Rudd made an alliance with all the Kaeld clans. The next day, the group heads back to Avenir in a carriage, and Lily takes advantage of everyone being asleep to thank Rudd. She tells him they won thanks to him, but the girl gives his words back to him and suddenly gives him a kiss on the cheek before going to sleep and leaving Rudd confused. However, Lilia was listening to everything both of them were saying, and likewise thanks him for everything he did. After some time passes, they arrive back at Avenir, and Mynisha, after using the gem, managed to recover, so she thanks Ammon and tells her from now on she will cook every day, leaving the demon completely fascinated as she loved the girl's cooking. Several days later, Mynisha reads many of the requests the adventurers are making. After mentioning this to Rudd, the girl goes up to the second floor and Rudd stays reviewing the requests, just as he thinks that despite having united other clans, there are still many problems. At that precise instant, Nin appears, running at full speed. Rudd right away goes out and realizes there is another injured girl, homunculus, and Luna immediately heals her. Upon waking up, she asks for help as her group of friends was attacked. Rudd tells her he will help her, but she needs to stay with Luna, as she will feel much calmer while he investigates where her group is. Right away, Nin and Rudd head to where the problem occurred and realize it is near their labyrinth. Upon arriving, they realize there is a horde of homunculi who want to fight each other. Seeing them start fighting, Rudd addresses one of the homunculi named Samamina and asks her what is happening. She tells him they are facing off with the combat homunculi from Brunkles. He right away recalls that Luna escaped from there, as the homunculi created in a place are literally illegal. Rudd starts wondering if that small group is truly conscious, as unlike the ones guarding them, the others only respond to carry out the mission of killing. At that moment, Ammon arrives and tells him they are just puppets controlled by someone, as at the end of the day they were created with these human forms. So they have no other choice but to eliminate them all by breaking the crystal in their chest. When finished, Nin mentions that the other group has already been healed. Rudd, after observing them, notices some seem a little hostile and others nervous, but thinks it is normal given everything they have been through. Samamina at that moment asks if she can go with her friend, as despite everything they do not trust humans and have nowhere to go. A short while later, Rudd tells us he took the entire group to the clan house. There they were given hospitality, but while talking with Nin they know they need to do something, as after all they come from a place where they were illegally created. At that moment, the girl he had saved arrives and introduces herself as Feel. Having heard them mention they were going to talk to the city constable, she tells them she is willing to answer any questions about Brunkles, as she plans to help the people who rescued her. Right away, both of them head to the constable's office. And everyone cannot stop looking at them, as homunculi are not well received in this world. The girl tells him the best thing would be not to hold hands, as they are drawing a lot of attention. She also apologizes to him for causing him so many problems in the place. However, Rudd is the one who ends up apologizing because they are clearly being received in the village in a very unwelcoming way he did not expect, as he explains that the people there are not used to seeing homunculi. Feel responds that they were likewise already prepared to be seen this way when they escaped from Brunkles. A short while later they arrive at the constable, and he explains everything that happened in Brunkles. Rudd asks him to please allow the homunculi to stay in the village, as they have nowhere to go, not to mention they have their own consciousness, and could serve as a workforce in the village. The man likes the idea and asks the girl if she knows the reason the homunculi have such advanced technology. She responds it is thanks to Greed, a demon king who appeared in that place approximately 20 years ago. This leaves everyone in shock. Feel also tells them that in Brunkles they are mass-producing homunculi like her, so the constable mentions he will share this information with the country, as he knows they need to do something as soon as possible. He also assures her that Avenir will protect them, leaving her very, very happy. A short while later, while Rud and Feel walk back home, Rud tells her that despite being allowed to stay, they will possibly be watched quite closely. Also, Rud asks about Samamina, and she responds she is quite strong, as the girl apparently is a commander, but despite this she is a very good and caring girl. Finally, despite many homunculi who hate humans, they are happy, as Rud gave them a reason to understand that they can be loved. A few hours later, Rud meets with all the homunculi and tells them he will find them work. So they are glad to hear from Feel that all of them have even built entire villages. So Rud assumes they know how to do all kinds of things. Quickly, many of them remember their traumas and think they will be mistreated as they were in the past. But Rud right away, upon learning they worked in deplorable conditions, tells them they will have plenty of rest and only work a couple of hours a day, causing everyone to calm down immediately and be left in complete shock. Samamina thanks Rud, as no one had ever done something like that for them. Afterward, Rud heads to his sister and she reads many pending work requests. So after thinking for a little while, they conclude that the group could build public bathhouses with hot springs, so he asks his sister to send the request to the constable. Nin at that moment tells Rud she has noticed his friend Luna acting quite strange, as she even asked to stay with the homunculi, so she wonders if she is truly feeling attracted or interested in them. A few hours later, Rud runs into Luna and helps her carry a basket. He also takes the opportunity to talk with the girl and asks if everyone is doing well, as he mentions he has noticed she does not stray from the homunculi. Luna, a little worried, tells him she knows they will be building the bathhouses, but is thinking about what will happen after they build everything that is needed. This causes Rud to calm her, telling her he will make sure she always has something to do. The girl tells him she was very fortunate to have been taken in by Rud from the very beginning, and she thinks the girl might be remembering things upon hearing everything bad she has lived through, so Rud mentions he should address this very soon. But the girl only responds that someday when people no longer have bad judgments about them. Finally, Rud gives her some encouraging words and the girl with tears in her eyes ends up thanking him. A short while later, while Rud was walking alone, suddenly Ammon throws herself at him, pressing her large chest against Rud's face. This causes him to get angry with the girl and ends up throwing her to the ground. Ammon, very proudly, tells him she now has students she teaches magic to, but Rud tells her there are better things to do, like building things. Ammon only tells him she does things that amuse her, not to mention children learning magic from a demon king. Rud takes advantage of this mention and asks her how much she knows about the demon king Greed, as he knows this man taught people in Brunkles to create homunculi. Ammon responds that he is possibly just creating homunculi to pass the time, as the man likes to investigate and demon kings have a completely unlimited lifespan, so if they were to die they essentially come back to life in the same form, unlike the majority who lose their memories. Since they are immortal, Greed is possibly simply creating homunculi as a hobby. Rud asks if this hobby will go on for the rest of his life. The girl disagrees and explains that the man simply uses this path as part of the search for ultimate power, as his absorb shield along with the others forms part of what the Demon King considers necessary to obtain this power. Also, upon hearing that Greed manufactures homunculi as simple experiments, Rud fills with rage, telling her it is completely unforgivable and asking if Greed is in any labyrinth. The girl, seeing Rud wants to go defeat him, tells him his biggest problem is his power. This is because in many situations Rud uses too much of it, so if he does not learn to control it, he could literally turn into a monster. And if he were to control it perfectly, she confesses that he could even become a demon king. But Rud refuses, as he is not interested in being a demon king. The girl, after hearing his refusal, says goodbye and leaves. Right away, while Rud continues walking, we see his eyes change color for an instant. Also, suddenly his dark aura comes out from within him, and a voice whispers that he should destroy everything. Several weeks pass, and it is narrated that during all this time the homunculi dedicated themselves to building the public bathhouses, and at first they were not very well liked by the people. However, as time passed they won the affection of the entire village. Also, Rud during this entire time dedicated himself to training control of his mana, mentioning he will not allow Greed to kill him just for having these powers. Afterward, Rud enters the management room of the Avenir Labyrinth, and we see the girls and Marius are there. They manage to summon a baby Giberno as well as a half-demon using grimoires, so they clearly thank Rud, as they now have new companions. We can also notice that Rud now administers the labyrinth and is loved by all the monsters. Several days later, Rud finally inaugurates the public bathhouses, And because he still sees people distrustful of the homunculi, he mentions they will be the first to try them. Right away, we see the girls are the first to enter and are completely enchanted by the hot springs. Because the twins are bathing each other, Nin goes completely wild with Manisha, as she also wants to do it. Shortly after, Ammon talks with the girls and tells them it is wrong that Nin has not yet been able to learn the transformation spell. And because it is a secret between both of them, she ends up threatening her with putting vegetables in her food. So as punishment, she tells Ammon they will check the size of her chest, so they start playing with them. Manisha at that instant tells her she feels very happy now that she can go out with many more friends. Suddenly, the girls hear a shout in the men's bathroom, and we can see right away that they want to make a hole to spy on the girls. But Rudd refuses as he cannot allow any of these perverts to see his beloved little sister. Even Marius himself is found climbing the wall. Several men mention they want to see Lily's and Manisha's chests, so Rudd gives them a beating. The girls get nervous as they are hearing everything they are saying. Just one of them mentions that even though Nin does not have much up top, he likewise wants to see her with nothing at all. This causes the girls to get furious, but Rudd silences them, saying they cannot say these obscene things, as all of them are a similar size and they will have to imagine them. These words clearly leave the girls completely flustered. Shortly after, Rudd leaves the place and a villager asks if the bathhouses are safe. Rudd responds yes, as just then adventurers come out very happy from the hot springs. Also, Samamina arrives at the place and kindly tells them they can come whenever they want. This causes the villagers to feel very confident and want to enjoy the bathhouses as well. Rudd right away notices the girls coming out and asks them how the bath was, but because they heard they were being talked about, they end up getting furious with them. Several days later, while Rudd thanks Samamina for staying to work at the bathhouses, a man arrives at full speed. He informs them that a horde of monsters is heading their way. Right away, Rudd gathers all the adventurers and tells them they are more than enough to deal with all of them, as there are around 150 monsters, and they have nothing to fear since they were the only ones to complete the Kaled Labyrinth, which not even the two best clans could. He also adds that for every monster they eliminate, their reward will be generous. Lily congratulates Rudd on the good speech, and Rudd mentions he actually lied to them a little, as in reality there are more than 300 monsters. Marius and Ammon arrive with the impression that they have a feeling a new labyrinth has been created in the area. So after explaining their theories, both tell him they will help anyway. At that moment, the homunculi group appeared, and Samamina tells them they will also help, leaving Rudd completely happy. We also see Rudd's pets arrive at that moment, and he tells them he needs to ask them a favor. A short while later, while improving the village's defenses, they spot the horde, and at first they are a little afraid, but right away they perform an arrow attack, finishing off many of them. But because several goblins can use magic, they take out several knights. These start getting nervous, but we see Marius and Lily get ready to go out and fight at that moment. Rudd likewise launches himself using taunt, and in a single movement they manage to finish off many of them. This motivates all the adventurers, who right away join Rudd's fight, and after a while of fighting they end up defeating all of them. They are happy for a few moments. However, another horde of monsters starts arriving. Simultaneously, the monsters from the Avenir Labyrinth also start arriving at the place. This causes the adventurers to panic, but Rudd calms them, saying he has control over them, as they right away launch themselves to fight against the goblins. Afterward, it is revealed that the favor Rudd had asked his pets was to call the monsters, so after a while of fighting again, they manage to win the battle. Ammon arrives with Rudd and congratulates him for using the monsters to defend the village. Rudd mentions that for now they need to search for and conquer the new labyrinth, as he cannot ignore the enormous amount of monsters being sent. Ammon confesses that this labyrinth possibly belongs to Greed himself. This causes Rudd to get furious and tell her that if that is the case, they need to finish off the Demon King immediately. Ammon asks what he will do when he defeats him, wondering if he will also recruit him like her. But Rudd tells her he cannot forgive everything he has done to the homunculi. The girl, upon hearing that Rudd does not want to kill him, hands him some shackles that can suppress the demon's abilities. Marius gets excited as he wants to go fight, but Rudd tells him no and mentions to the girls they will accompany him. As because Greed will possibly continue sending monsters, someone needs to stay, so he trusts the clan to Marius to guide all the adventurers in his absence. Finally, Marius and Ammon accept staying, and Rudd tells everyone, clearly referring to the adventurers, that they will go deal with the labyrinth, so he asks them that if more monsters appear to defend the place, After several hours of walking, we see Rudd's group is climbing some dirt stairs. Samamina asks him if he is sure they will visit the place where Greed is, as all the homunculi fear him and he is quite well known. After entering the place, we see the labyrinth is completely empty. Even Lily uses her detection skill but cannot find absolutely anything. Rudd tells her to then look for the exit, but the girl tells him she cannot detect it either, so Rudd gets scared knowing they were actually teleported to the very deepest part of the labyrinth. And just at that moment, he is left in shock feeling a bestial mana presence. Just in front of them, a portal opens, and right out of it comes Greed himself. Right away, Rudd asks Greed to close the labyrinth and stop summoning monsters, so if he listens to him, he will spare his life. However, the man with an evil look shows them for a moment that he truly has thousands of monsters ready to send. Greed tells him he could conquer Avenir if he wanted, as he practically has unlimited points to create summons. The man at that moment notices there are 2 homunculi in the group, so Luna comes forward and clearly shows him her gem. This causes Greed to get very excited, as he mentions she appears to have matured more than any of his other experiments. The man even asks her if she would like to come back with him. And just at that moment, Nin and the twins ask why they were never told Luna was a homunculus. But the girl apologizing to them is received with love, as they have become her friends regardless. Greed at that instant does not like what he sees, so he takes on a demonic form and without thinking throws himself at Rudd. Rudd manages to block him and feels an immense power. Right away the girls try to attack, but the demon manages to land a blow on Samamina. Just upon seeing that the homunculus and Rudd are talking, he clearly tries to attack them, but Rudd and Nin use a shield. Also, Rudd uses taunt on Greed and he launches himself at him. Also, just as he is about to launch an attack at them, Luna manages to nullify his magic with a spell, making the girls deliver an enormous cut to the demon. Rudd takes advantage of the moment and puts the shackles on him that Ammon had given him. In a change of scene, we see the adventurers are fighting against the monsters. Even Kiglas join them to help defend the village. Because Ammon does not want to help them due to her laziness, Chuger threatens her saying he will tell Manisha that she helped in absolutely nothing in the fight, which means she clearly will not give her any more sweet treats. This causes the girl to feel motivated and with a single skill manages to create an explosion that finishes off many of them. Back with Rudd, the group mentions they should take Greed to the village. However, at this moment they realize he has a gem in his chest just like the homunculi, so at that precise instant a portal starts to form behind him. Rudd manages to protect himself from the blow, and we see a portal sends out the true Greed. He confesses to them that what they faced was a copy with all of his memories and several of his skills. Greed, without thinking twice, transforms into his demonic form and launches a powerful lightning bolt at Rudd. Rudd thinks he needs to use more of his mana, but is hit by the demon. Also, just as he was about to hit him on the ground, Nin uses a bullet rain skill. The twins also take advantage to fuse and have much more of an advantage over Greed. After exchanging several blows with him, Greed manages to land a blow on Rudd, who barely manages to block it. Lily tells him that while she heals she will take care of distracting him, so Rudd, seeing even the girl is on the defensive, thinks they need to take advantage of a distraction from him, so he uses taunt on him and Lily lands a blow on his neck. However, this does absolutely nothing to him, and after launching a tornado skill at the girls, he knocks them unconscious and takes away their transformation. Just at that moment, Rudd lands a blow on him and tells the girls to regroup, as he will try to hold him off. However, Greed quickly approaches Rudd and hits him. Not knowing what to do, he begins concentrating all the mana in his body, so he launches himself at him and makes a cut on his shoulder. But the demon likewise responds with one. At that moment, Greed thinks he needs to use his counterattack skill again, but when Rudd decides to use it, the demon likewise launches the attack, which leaves Rudd gravely wounded. The girls at that moment are in shock seeing the damage Rudd has received. At that instant, the demon starts charging a blow to finish all of them off, and Rudd suddenly sees everything is dark, but from nowhere he sees his friends being beaten. And as he crawls, he thinks his only duty in this world is to protect the people he loves. Rudd with little strength gets to his feet and sees all his friends are gravely wounded. Luna, who is the last one standing, tries to attack the demon, but he hits her and right away grabs her by the neck. Rudd thinks that if he does not do something immediately, he will end up killing all of them, so he tries to concentrate all of his mana and push his abilities and limits to the maximum. Right away, Rudd begins emanating a completely red aura as his inner demon awakens. With a single blow, he launches Greed into the wall. The demon launches himself at Rudd at that moment, but Rudd with a threatening look thinks there is a voice telling him to destroy everything. So at that moment, Rudd begins beating the demon as if he were just any ordinary opponent for Rudd. And just as he was beginning to give him a barrage of blows, Nin's voice was heard. However, because he was in a completely different state within himself, he began approaching the girl to finish her off, but she took him by the hand and gave him a slap to bring him back to his senses. Rudd at that moment regains his sanity and thinks he felt the mana taking control of him. However, he falls to his knees again as the mana is controlling him once more. Rudd recalls Ammon's words, which were that if he did not learn to control the mana, he could turn into a monster. Nin starts talking to him to calm him down, and after relaxing him a little, Rudd managed to control all of his mana. After taking his sword and shield again, Greed tells them he will finish off all of them and the entire village. At that instant, Rudd sees everyone in the village fighting in some images Greed showed him, so he uses his shield absorption skill on all of them. This causes Rudd to instantly obtain 1,000,000 damage as a counterattack at that moment. So after activating his sword, he launches himself at the demon, and with a single thrust finishes him off completely. Shortly after, the group returns to the village and is welcomed by everyone. Manisha embraces Rudd again and tells him she knew he would come back alive. Everyone in the place starts congratulating Rudd as he managed to get through the labyrinth in record time, so everyone agrees that Rudd is the most powerful tank in the world. And that is where the anime ends. If you made it this far, drop a comment and let me know what you thought. Do not forget to leave a like, it helps the channel more than you think. Subscribe to Hakai Realm and hit the bell so you never miss a recap. Until next time.